Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Agent Provocateur with yours truly and Adam Wylde. We're here today with a lifelong client of mine. We've been working together now for 20 years, since he was 20 years of age. And let me give you a little introduction. He was born and raised in Czech Republic, was the first person ever to win a gold medal at the World Juniors and at the Men's World Championships for Czech Republic in the same year. Did that in the year 2000. A 1999 first-round pick of the Ottawa Senators, a finalist for the Calder Trophy NHL Rookie of the Year, NHL All-Rookie Team, a 5-time 20-goal scorer, 1-time 30-goal scorer, 2-time NHL All-Star, represented Czech Republic in 2 Olympics, and 1 World Cup of Hockey, Martin Havlát.
Hey, all right.
Hi, guys. Almost perfect, Allan. Almost perfect.
I get a B+.
So, Martin, Allan and I have spoken many times, and for anybody listening to this, we've spoken many times, and your name has come up about what a great guy you are and what a great relationship that you and Allan have. But there's a story today, I think, that we're going to start at, Allan. It has to do with, and I think a lot of people have always wondered about this. What's it like to be in the NHL when your contract is up? And that's sort of where our story starts today. Is that not right, Allan?
It's exactly right, but we want to set it up a little bit. Okay. And to give you a little bit of setup, Marty, do you remember the first time we ever met together?
It's gonna be 20 years ago for sure, maybe more. Is that right?
Yep. I drove from Prague to
it was in Freestec when I was playing in Trinec, I think.
Yeah.
My last year, I think it was, and we met at the restaurant by the highway there. I think
it was.
I don't remember.
It was like a 6-hour drive from Prague to Freestec, and we met for lunch. And
that's where I got the taste of the agent. How you call yourself now? Agent Provocateur.
Agent Provocateur, correct. Correct. And the next time we really met together, and it was something that, we had a great meeting. We had a great lunch. You didn't speak any English at all, not one word. It was all through a translator.
A little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit. You got a little bit better now. And then the next time I saw you was at the World Juniors in Sweden. We were in northern Sweden. The World Juniors were in Umeå and Skellefteå. And you had just won with Czech Republic gold medal at the World Juniors. And you were center ice, the last player left on the ice after the whole gold medal presentation, with the biggest smile I had ever seen, with the gold medal around your neck. You had a cell phone. And you were circling around the ice by yourself with the gold medal, talking on the phone. I later found out you were talking to your dad, who you've always been incredibly close with.
Guys, you were standing there, right? Surprisingly.
And then you came off the ice, and I was standing right when you came off the ice, and you gave me a big bear hug. And I said, congratulations. And then you went off into the dressing room.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's been a while. Huh? It's like,
I had a lot more hair back then.
Funny, it was one of the last things I ever wanted. And
Martin, I'm curious, what was your first impression through a translator of Allan Walsh? And why did you ultimately decide to go with him? Because obviously there would have been a few agents that would have probably knocked on your door.
Well, back then, every decision I was making was with my father. Mm-hmm. Good or bad, we did it together. Actually, the decision on Allan didn't end up to be such a bad decision. And I'm still with him till today, even when I'm not playing hockey anymore. We ended up being pretty close, not just professionally, but on the personal note. So, I don't really know. He probably talked too much in all those meetings, and that I didn't have any other option. So that meeting, the first meeting, it was just, I think, the first time we ever met, and it was a nice meeting. And we had a translator that day, and it was a great talk. But nothing was happening after that. And even at the World Championship under 20, we just, a couple of times we ran into each other, we said hi, and that was it.
Allan, I got a question for you, Allan. How did you find out about Martin Havlát, and what made you decide to take the 6-hour drive from Prague?
Yeah, Martin Havlát was a very highly rated future NHL prospect at the time. Anybody involved in the hockey industry knew Marty Havlát. Many considered him in his draft year first round pick. He ultimately was drafted in the first round. He was a star on his team. He starred for Czech Republic in the under 18 World Championships. And everybody knew him, and any agent, especially me, I was still maybe 4 years in the business, kind of young and just starting off, so to speak. Given that it's been 26 years now, the opportunity to sit and have lunch with a player of Marty's stature was a pretty big deal.
And you had to do that drive on your own. It wasn't like you had somebody take you from Prague, right? You drove, you rented a car and you drove.
No. I had somebody with me from Czech who drove, and the translator was with us the whole way. Okay. Yeah. So, but the meeting was arranged, I think, more through Marty's dad, and Marty was, interested to sit and meet and talk. And it was a great get to know you session. But like Marty said, there was nothing really more to it than that. And then after Marty's first NHL season, where he was the runner-up finalist for the Calder and was NHL All-Rookie Team, that summer, we met a few times, and just before the start of the next season, we started working together.
August what?
August 28th.
There it is. Wow.
20 years together. Huh?
Yeah.
That's a great number.
Marty, I have to tell you, I'm a full disclosure, I'm a Leafs fan. So you broke my heart on several occasions. I want you to know that.
Well, I don't think we did that well in the playoffs.
Well, but I mean, so that, having Allan as an agent, I know that, Allan would have been, it's so funny, Allan, to think of that. It's like you were just sort of starting out, but Marty Havlát is a big get. And when you're shepherding a young player through their career early on, and especially on this Senators teams of the early 2000s, which were great teams, always had a chance, always were sort of in contention. How do you help a player mature in that early part of their career? I want to ask you and like what your kind of rules are. And then Marty, I want to ask you about what Allan did for you afterwards, because I've always been curious about that. Okay, they're a teenager, but now they're a young adult, and there's thousands of people watching them every night.
Yeah, you have to lay different layers of structure around the player's life off the ice. So one of the first things was getting a financial plan together and having Marty understand what it means to save money and what it means to manage cash flow and what it means for later retirement. And I think all throughout Marty's career, we constantly were talking about his financial health and what it would mean for him in retirement whenever that occurred. You want every player to play as long as they could possibly play, but you also want players to be very well set up for retirement. And that was a key part from the very beginning. And trust me, when you sit with a 19 or 20-year-old player, and you're talking to them about retirement and what they're going to need when they are in retirement, they look at you like you have a third eye.
Yes.
But it is a key part of establishing structure in a player's life and having a player own what they are going to buy, what they can afford, how they are going to live. And that was a key part of things right from the get-go. Marty,
do you remember Allan ever laying down the law with you? What was he like in those early days as an advisor for you?
Well, it was very easy because when he was talking about about the money advising stuff, I didn't understand much, so I was pretending that I understand everything he said. We had more meetings than just one about that. But well, since the day one we got together, he's been helping me off the ice in every way. So it's a lot of fun stuff. But during those years, you get up and down moods and swings and everything. You're playing well, you're not playing well. You're having any kinds of issues. He was always there for me, and he's still here for me even after my career. So that's been amazing. So even now, I have to, before I do something, I have to ask him if I can do that.
Allan, for a player of Martin Havlat's stature and the upswing in his career, it's got to be exciting as an agent watching. But as an agent, you're also probably looking to the future and going, okay, so this is a young player. They're getting into their mid-20s now. And based on the rules after the first lockout in 04-05, the first full year round, free agency moved down to 27 years old.
Correct.
And so at the end of the 05-06 season, after a blistering playoffs, 13 points in 10 games, you're the top of everybody's mind. You're a restricted free agent. And there was a major discussion to be had with the Senators there because the contract's up. You've got a year between you and unrestricted free agency. What happened at that point? What was the discussion between the two of you? And then what was the discussion with the Senators?
Marty?
Yeah, Allan, who wants to take this one? Because I know this is where the drama starts, right? This story is unbelievable. So who wants to take the first step into it?
There was not many stories till that day, or that kind of after the playoffs, all the drama started with us.
Yeah.
Allan,
Well, we had a couple of other interesting events and contract negotiations together. The first deal that I did coming out of entry level, we did not have a deal when training camp started. The commonly used term in the media is holding out, although
who was holding out, you or me?
And I don't believe in that term because you don't have a contract, so you can't hold out for something from something you don't have. But we did not have a deal when training camp started that year. And Marty was in Czech Republic. And then he came and we met together in Montreal all through training camp. We were negotiating with Ottawa. We weren't very close. And as we got towards the beginning of the season, we still didn't have a deal. We missed the first game or two of the season. And then I said to Ottawa, that's it. If we're not going to make a deal, Marty's going back to Europe. And we booked a flight back to Czech. Marty's at the airport. He's going through security. And I'm talking to John Muckler, the GM, and Peter Chiarelli was the assistant GM. And literally 10 minutes before the plane was boarding, they moved. And we moved a little, and both sides put a little bit of water in their wine, and we made the deal. And Marty came out through security, And I met him there at the airport, and we went and had dinner in Montreal. And then he went and joined Ottawa the next morning.
Wow.
That was the first drama we had.
That was the first drama. But
Marty, what's that like for you in your early 20s and you're, it's coming down to the wire. Your teammates are showing up in training camp and you can't be there.
Well, it wasn't fun. Any of these things. It wasn't fun because you want to be in a camp and want to get ready for the season as good as you can. But it was that time. It was probably necessary. We felt it together with Allan. It was necessary, and it was fair or unfair, whatever. But it's no fun. You want to be there right from the beginning and have the time to get ready the way you're supposed to. But I was practicing with the team, I think, the University of Montreal Concordia.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I had a couple of practices with the 67s in Ottawa, but it was fun if I'm looking at it this way. So
must have been cool for them. The University of Concordia, they must have been thrilled to have you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I was happy I could be able to practice with them and be on the ice with their team. So anytime I could practice with the team, it was better than just skate on my own. So, they helped me a lot before we agreed to everything, and then I could start the season with the boys, and it was a lot of fun every year in Ottawa.
Yeah. So then the next contract we negotiated together with Ottawa was right at the end of the World Cup of Hockey. Marty had just come off the ice. He came out. I met him by the elevators. I met you by the elevators. And we talked a bit about the offer Ottawa had just given us. We knew there was going to be a lockout declared in the next 1 or 2 days. And we signed a 1-year deal. You signed a 1-year deal with Ottawa just before the start of the lockout. And
it was fun.
That was fun, and you never got paid on that deal because you lost the entire year, right?
Yeah, well, that was a crazy year, I think, for everybody playing for. I don't know how many teams they had played for that year.
Yeah, you played in Czech, you played in Russia,
then back in Czech.
Yeah,
but the world before that happened. The World Cup was one of the most fun tournaments I've been part of. So, but the full year after that wasn't that much fun.
No, I can imagine.
Right.
For anybody.
Right. So now jump forward to the central focus of our podcast today, and the story of Marty being traded from Ottawa to Chicago and signing a 3-year contract. So I had met with Ottawa's GM, and he made it very clear he was not interested in doing a long-term deal. Marty, in the previous year, only played, I believe it was 18 games because he had shoulder surgery and missed a huge chunk of the season, and came back near the end of the season, but had a blowout playoffs. I mean, I remember being in Tampa, and you had some amazing games against Tampa, and Ottawa went on a roll, and you went on a roll. So the season's over, and I meet with Ottawa, and you're 1 year from unrestricted free agency, and they don't want to do a long-term deal, and we were talking, continuously with Ottawa. And at one point in time, they were willing to discuss something long-term, but the numbers they were talking were way below your market value. So finally, we got to a point where the GM calls me and he says, look, we've made a decision. We're going to trade Marty, and we're going to need you to help us here, because if it's just a 1-year deal, wherever Marty goes and he's walking to free agency, we're not getting any value back. But if we can get, Marty signs a deal in conjunction with the trade, we'll get some value back. So you can talk to teams. We'll talk to teams, and let's work together to get something that's good for you and good for us. So
I got to ask you, Allan, just got to stop you there for a second, because what's the rationale at that point? Why not do a longer term deal? Did Ottawa ever, it was John Muckler who was still the GM, or was it Brian Murray at this point?
It was John Muckler.
So did they give you a rationale? Is that, as an agent, do you ask why, or do you just keep going?
I never really asked why. That's, they're telling me what their position is. Mm-hmm. And I think the numbers where we were at was above what they were looking to do. Mm-hmm. I think they had to run all their deals by ownership. I think they had other players that they were looking at to devote perhaps more money to. But it also felt like it was time to move on. Sometimes you just feel like it's time. And it certainly felt like that in this situation. If a GM is saying to me, we've made a decision, we want to trade the player, do you really want to stay somewhere where people are feeling like that about you? This is part of the game, and it's time to move on. Ottawa was great for Marty. You had great friends there. You had a great life there. You were very involved in the community with Ronald McDonald House and other things that people don't even know about. But it was time to move on.
And Marty, for you get a call from Allan, who by now you've known for 6 or 7 years, somebody you trust, and he says he kind of has to relay that information to you. How do you begin to prepare for, you don't know where you're going. He's got to now make these phone calls. How do you begin to prepare for the inevitable trade that's going to happen?
Well, it was the first time for me. Actually, I heard about that we might have to switch teams, or that we're not gonna get what we're looking for. And I had a couple different situations like that later on, and I'm not really a fan of those situations, but they are not very enjoyable, or on some parts. Sometimes you ended up knowing later, after a time, that actually was great, or it's a good thing that happened to you. But at the time, I was on a very, very good team, one of the better teams in the NHL, in the playoffs every year. I was used to that. I didn't even think about it at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to be having a chance to play for the cup. And now it was looking like I will have to leave. And the year before I left, Marian left, and basically the same year I left, Zdeno Chara left. So it was kind of a weird feeling when you leave a city and team who were great to you, and all the friends you had there from the beginning of your career, and especially playing in Canada, where hockey is number one, right? So that time we still didn't know where we're gonna go. So Allan worked his magic. So
how does that work, Allan? By the way, we forget sometimes how great those Senators teams were. Like the kinds of caliber of talent that those teams had were unbelievable. You just mentioned Marian Hossa, Zdeno Chara, Alfredsson, Spezza, so many names. Allan, you have to start to make these phone calls now. How do you begin that? What's that? Like, do you just call a GM and go, hey, you interested? Like, how does that work?
Well, Ottawa was working the phones pretty hard, and many of the teams were talking to Ottawa, and then after giving me a call, because the first question was always, what kind of contract are you guys looking for? Because if it's a 1-year deal and we're walking to free agency, it's a much different level of value they're willing to give back to Ottawa. So teams wanted to know, are we willing to do a longer term deal? How long we're willing to go? And remember, this is a player, even though he had an amazing playoff, still had shoulder surgery the year before, and missed a significant chunk of the season, which was certainly a concern of a lot of teams in signing a player to a really long-term deal. So I remember vividly being in my office and getting a call from Dale Talon, who was the GM in Chicago. And he said that he's always loved Marty as a player. He scouted him extensively in his draft year. Dale was a scout at the time. He says, Martin Havlát is a game breaker. We're going to change everything here in Chicago at the time. Bill Wirtz was still alive. Chicago Blackhawk home games were not televised. The United Center had typically 10,000 fans per game. The building was half empty. And really, it was a franchise that was not really going anywhere on the ice for a very long time. And Dale said, I'm going to change things. I'm going to bring in players. I'm going to make this team a winner. I have a plan to build this team to win the Stanley Cup. And it begins with Marty Havlát. And I remember saying to Dale, at the time, let's say Marty's value was somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million a year. And I said, Dale said, what are you looking for? And I said, well, we'll give up a couple of years of free agency, but we don't want to sign a 6, 7, 8-year deal right now. We have a relatively new salary cap. You want to know how that's all going to come into play, where salaries are going to go, where revenues are going to go. So I kind of thought from the very beginning with Marty that a 3-year deal was the right term, where you're coming into a team, you're giving up 2 years of free agency, but then still relatively young to be able to decide to stay in Chicago or to go somewhere else after. If the team doesn't turn around and if it really stays games off television and small crowds and, a lot of losing, do you really want to lock into that really long term? So both sides were kind of taking a chance on the other one. But I gave Dale a number. It was a big number. And he said he needed to go talk to ownership. And I remember Dale got in his car and went to Mr. Wirtz's house. And I believe his daughter was getting married that weekend. And it was sort of like a scene from The Godfather where, Dale gets led into an anteroom where there's people there in tuxedos, and Bill Wirtz comes in and Dale explains to him, who Marty is and what he can do and what he believes is, in his plan for the future, where Marty fits in, and needed to get that approval on the contract to then go make the trade. And Dale called me afterwards.
Dale got in at the right time. Huh?
What would you ask for me on the day of my daughter's wedding?
Exactly. That's why I made the reference to The Godfather, right? And I remember, Dale called me and I called Marty, and there was a lot of communication going on between us. And ultimately, Marty, you said to me, let's give Chicago a try. And we communicated to Chicago that we would do a deal, and it was a 3-year deal in the $6 million a year range, which at the time was a groundbreaking contract. Mm-hmm. It was a big number. It was a big number
which I could.
Go ahead.
Which I couldn't understand. It was such a big number.
You'd earned it.
Well, it was a big raise, right? Mm-hmm. Compared to that last year.
You were in the $2 million coming off the deal.
I remember. I'm not sure if you remember. I remember you asking if you absolutely sure on that number, because I almost wanted to fight that it's too high.
Wow.
No, I didn't.
Good thing you didn't.
I quickly talked him out of that.
So I'm because here's the thing, right? And this is from the fan perspective, which is me here. Marty, you're going from like a top team. We talked to, and then you're going to the Blackhawks, who are objectively, and Allan, you spelled this out perfectly. They were a mess. They're a mess at this point. They weren't the Blackhawks organization that, won cups and had enormous revenues coming in and were, in every outdoor game. This was a forgotten original six franchise. Was there any apprehension on your part, Marty, to signing a 3-year contract with them because they'd have been a disaster for the better part of, probably since the early 90s?
Well, I was we talk about every possible thing, what could happen or how's it going to be going from one of the best teams in the playoffs every year to one of the worst teams and not being in the playoffs for, 10 years, maybe
wow.
That time. And, but I felt like we had no other option than switch the teams. So, but I felt like I'm going to a team where they want me and where probably my role is going to change than what I had in Ottawa. And I was just hoping to play a lot in every situation. And that's what we talked about before we made the deal. And everything I just said here, the stuff what I talked to Dale about and Allan, they did everything they said. They gave me the chance to play and to be in those different situations. And I was happy to be a part of. I never seen anything or any change from one of the worst teams to one of the best teams before I left in Chicago. There was another 3 amazing years in my career, and I'm very, very happy I could be part of it.
Allan, do you have to worry about that too? Like top team to the worst team? Does that factor into your decisions as well as an agent?
Sure it did, but I always had a tremendous belief in Marty. And when he came in, right away, he made a difference on the ice, and he was clearly the crowd favorite amongst the players on the team, including their last year when they went to the conference finals, and Marty was named the MVP of the team. But I want to get back to the trade itself and some of the things that went on to push this deal over the finish line and actually getting it announced. So I was with Marty in Ottawa when the trade actually happened, and it was a 3-way deal with San Jose. San Jose sent some prospects to Chicago, who then flipped them to Ottawa to make this deal happen. And then, the deal is done. We verbally agreed on the contract with Chicago, and Dale calls and says, okay, we need you and Marty to come to Chicago ASAP. We're going to have medicals. Our doctors have to examine Marty's shoulder and make sure that, everything's all clear. We may need to take some pictures, some imaging of the shoulder as well, see how the physical examination goes. We're going to have a press conference, and we're going to generate some excitement here in our market. And that's really important. And we need to get the contract signed. So they send us the air tickets, and Marty and I go to the airport in Ottawa. They booked 2 first-class air tickets. We fly from Ottawa to Chicago. We land in Chicago. They arranged a car to pick us up at the airport. It's a long, black stretch limousine, and it was a sweltering hot day. I just remember it being like one of the hottest days in Chicago history. It was over 100 degrees, and we get in the car, and we're both dressed, suit and ties. And we get in the limo, and we go riding to the United Center. And Dale was in front of the United Center, pacing back and forth. The black limo pulls up. We get out. Dale and Marty shake hands and make some small talk. And in we go into the United Center. We meet with the doctor who examines Marty's shoulder. He says, I don't need any images. I don't need any pictures. Everything here is great. Marty's fine. He's all cleared to go. So that's out of the way. And we go up to Dale's office and he hands me the contracts for the first time. And he's like, okay, we need them signed. I have to pick up the contract and read through it. And it takes a little bit of time to read through the entire contract to make sure everything is in order. It is. Marty signs them. Dale picks up the contracts and sprints out of the office. And what I didn't know at the time is that Bill Wirtz had come in because Bill Wirtz has to sign under his policy every single contract personally. Along with every check that ever got written from his organization. Personally hand-signed everything.
That's not normal, right?
Not that I know of. Okay. So Dale sprints over to Bill Wirtz's office, wherever it was in the building, and Bill countersigned the contracts. And Dale came back, and he was visibly relieved that Mr. Wirtz had signed the contracts, as if almost he harbored some doubt at the last minute whether these deals or this contract was going to get signed even at the last minute. So now the contract's signed, it gets registered with the league, and we go down for the press conference. There was a lot of media there. There was a big buffet table laid out with food. And Marty, I remember one part of the press conference where you're sitting there at the head table with everybody, as you said, I've never missed the playoffs in my entire career, and I don't intend to miss the playoffs here. And it was a pretty prophetic comment, right?
It's fun. Playoffs fun.
Yeah.
Was not used to not being there, but we made it my last year, so that was fun.
Yeah. So, what do you remember about the press conference and that whole day?
Well, like you said, we were driving in a limo to get to the stadium, right? To sign the. I remember Savi sitting next to us. Savi was there.
Yeah. So this is a great story. So. After the press conference, we're all eating. We all went to the buffet. We filled up a plate of food and we're all sitting there. And Denny Savard was the assistant coach at the time of Chicago. And it was Denny Savard. And then a reporter sat down next to Denny. And then it was Marty and I. And, me and Denny and Marty were in a conversation. And the reporter sat down. And we had been discussing a little bit the genesis of the trade and some of the conversations with Dale, and the reporter interrupted, and he looks at me and he said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "It's just fascinating to me how involved you were in making this trade happen." He says, "Just fascinating. I'd like to do a story on this. Do you mind if I ask you some questions?" And I said, "No, go right ahead." And he says, "So tell me, you were actually having discussions, with Ottawa's GM. Is that normal?" And I said, "Yeah, it's perfectly normal. It happens a lot." He says, I've never heard of an assistant coach of an NHL team being so involved in those kinds of discussions." And I looked at him and I looked at Marty and I looked at Denise Savard and I said, "Excuse me, I'm Allan Walsh, Marty's agent. This here is Denise Savard, Hockey Hall of Famer, the assistant coach of the Chicago Blackhawks." And he just looked at all of us. And I remember he looked at us and he said, "Now Don't I have egg on my face?
Wow. And how do you be good? How are you a Chicago sports reporter without knowing Denny Savard and what he looks like? He was a legend, absolute legend.
I have no idea.
That's the way it was there when we got there.
Wow.
In 3 years after that too, it was much different.
Much different.
Then I remember one more thing where when was it the same day we were leaving, Allan?
It was the same day. It was after the press conference.
I remember we were coming in the limo, and then I remember leaving in the yellow dirty cab.
So what happened here? You guys are brought from the airport in a limo. Everything happens. You eat. You do the interview where he doesn't know whether you're Denny Savard or Allan Walsh, and then afterwards you kind of look at each other and go, "What now?"
Everybody,
is that how that?
Everybody left, and I mean, like the press conference cleared out. Dale went home. Everybody's gone, and Marty and I looking at each other. And Marty's like, "Do you have the air tickets back to Ottawa?" And I was like, and I look, and I realized they were only one-way tickets. So I'm like, let's go back to Dale's office. We go back to Dale's office, and his assistant is there. And I said, hi, are there flights? There are supposed to be flights booked for us to go back to Ottawa right after the presser. And she goes, oh, yes. I have the tickets here. And she opens up a folder and she hands them to us. It's like, okay, we got the tickets. And I said, what about a car back to the airport? She goes, oh, I'll call you a cab. So we're like, okay. Marty and I go down to the front of the United Center. Again, it is sweltering hot. And in the distance, after a while of being out there, this old beat up yellow cab clanking metal is coming down the road towards the United Center, chugging along. It was one of those old style yellow cabs. We get in the back.
Big Chryslers?
We get in the back. Our knees are basically banging up against the divider, and the cab has no air conditioning.
Oh no!
So he pulls out.
Sorry, we didn't mind that day, right? We still had the smile on our face.
Yeah.
We had the smile on our faces, but we were, after a while, we were soaking wet. I mean, my shirt was just stuck on me. My hair, which I had a lot more back then, was dripping. Marty was dripping, and we're there. And then I looked at the air tickets and I go, Marty, we're row 40 in coach flying back. So we got flown in first class to Chicago. We got picked up by a stretch limo. Here we are on the way back to the airport. We're in the back of a yellow cab, dripping sweat. We're flying coach back home, which was okay, right? It's just a little bit different than the way. And I turned to Marty and I said, Marty, there's a lesson in all this. They treat you a lot better on your way into town than they do on your way out.
It's so funny to hear that because it seems to be symbolic of what the Hawks were at that point. Right? It just seemed like they were an unfinished product. Like they planned everything for you to come in and then forgot, oh yeah, they might have to leave and go back home too. It's just a very funny story. Now, you guys have said that the next 3 years were pretty cool. Allan, Marty, Allan, I want to start with you on this one. You have a player, big contract, pressure. I do want to ask about this. How do you deal with that first big contract and the pressure that goes along with it? Because Marty Havlat's going to a team, hasn't made the playoffs in 10 years, can't sell out, and is the big name with the big ticket. Do you say anything to Marty beforehand, or is Marty the kind of guy where it's like, he'll be fine?
I don't think there was any pressure on Allan anymore.
No? Just you?
I think it started being on me a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
I would say this, and I'm sorry if I'm going to embarrass you, Marty, but Marty is an incredibly charismatic person. And he was very soon after coming to Chicago, a favorite of the media that he was working with all the time in Chicago. and he was also extremely popular with the fans. And I think that also off the ice, you're never going to find a more dedicated athlete. Marty was, the way he worked in the summers, I have never seen anyone work the way he does getting ready for the season. When we be together in August before leaving to camp, his legs were like tree trunks from all the work that he was doing in the summer. And he watched, the food that he ate, he was very careful with his diet and really approached the game like a true pro. And I think that coming into Chicago, you really couldn't go down. It couldn't get any worse on the ice, on the on-ice product than it already was. So it could only get better. But I think that from the hockey perspective, I don't tell players how to play. I don't give advice on whether they should shoot the puck or pass the puck. That's not what I do, right? So from the business side, just like Marty said, the contract was done. I went back to now working on all the off-ice issues and trusted Marty to do what he needs to do on the ice.
Did you feel any pressure, Marty?
Well, I kind of did for the first time because of the contract too, a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'll probably be one of the best paid guys on the team at the time. And I felt like they really believed in me because they gave me a contract like that. And I'm supposed to be one of the leaders of the team. And I wanted to perform and I wanted to have great first season and the season after that. Like, I think I'm not different than anybody else. They just, everybody wants to have the best season ever all the time. So, but the first year, the beginning, I felt pressure, what I didn't feel before, but ended up being pretty good after that. The next 3 years and until my body started falling apart.
Right. As happens to us all. I want to read a couple quotes here. Martin, I hope you don't mind if I read this, but these are things that have been published. When you talk about Allan, these are a couple things that have been said in press releases and stuff. Allan Walsh does anything to help his players. He's always honest. He speaks from the heart, and he doesn't care what anybody thinks. I was lucky to have Allan as my agent, as a player, and in my life as a friend. He helped me throughout my whole career, especially in the tough times. It wasn't just me. He stands up for all of his players. I will never forget that. It wasn't just business. Still, we're players, and it's better for the agent to fight your battles so you can focus on the game. So, Marty, can you talk? Let's talk about Allan as if he's not here. Okay. What would you say about your time with Allan? And what would you say to people that don't know Allan, that what should they know about him? What makes him special as an agent?
That he's not scared of anyone. He might be very short with a lot of hair, but when he walks somewhere in the room, you still can see him. And when he starts talking, then he's like loud like pit bull. Mm-hmm. But you want your agent to have a mentality like that. And I could always count on him, like I said, especially in the tough times. And throughout not just my career, but anybody's career, you're going to have tough times. Doesn't matter what you do. So when it's going your way, everything is so easy and so easy for you, so easy for the agent. But when it's not going your way and you really need some help and somebody who is thinking about you and that you really need on your side, and that Allan was always there when I needed the help, and it was not just once, but it was a lot of times. And the career is not long. Somebody's long career, somebody's short careers, but he's been always there for me. So I'm very happy for that.
Allan, how's it feel hearing that?
I think people who know me, people in my life, people around me, all know that Marty and I have always had from the very beginning a very special connection. You know, when Marty's first child was born, it was in San Jose. I flew up on the day his daughter was born, and
if it wasn't that close, would you still fly?
100%.
Yeah,
I was gonna be there no matter what. But I remember getting on the plane, going to the airport, getting on the plane. I had no bags with me at all. I had a morning flight, and I flew to San Jose, went right to the hospital, and held your daughter probably 2 hours after she was born.
Yeah, I showed her that picture yesterday when you sent it me.
Yeah. And Marty
doesn't remember it
and Marty got on a plane in Florida and came out to LA just to be at my son's bar mitzvah. You know, and because we've become over the course of working together for so many years, like family.
And because I was done already.
and you were already retired, so you were able to get on a plane during the season and fly out to LA. Correct. But you did that. You were there, and it meant a lot to me and to my family, to my son, to everybody. So that was very special. Wow.
Well, I want to thank you both, because it's so great for somebody sitting from my perspective to get the look, to understand that relationship a little bit better. I think that's part of what this show is supposed to be. And the relationship between the two of you is quite special. That's evident. So, you know, barring any other questions, Allan, I just want to say, Martin Havlát, what a pleasure it is to get to know you a little bit. Allan has said nothing but amazing things about you, and we really appreciate your time today on the show.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, Marty.
Ciao, ciao.